Man, I've been walking around for hours now. Where am I anyway? You know what? That's it. I'm getting my light out. Come on. Ah, that's better. Well, this place sure seems creepy. Doesn't seem like there's any... Ooh, there's someone. Hello. Up, and now he's gone. That's a bummer. But you know what's not a bummer? Today's debunk, Little Nightmares. So before we get into the actual meat of this video, let me summarize what Little Nightmares is and everything going on with it. Little Nightmares is a survival side-scrolling horror game, released in 2017. In it, you play a young girl named Six, trying to survive a floating restaurant out at sea called the Mall, along with her ravenous appetite. Little Nightmares 2 then came out in 2021. The story this time revolved around Six and new character Mono, as they make their way towards the signal tower. And everything was great. Little Nightmares was surely on its way to becoming one of the biggest horror game series in the world. But there was a snag. See, Little Nightmares was owned by a partnership between Bandai Namco and Tarsier Studios. But in 2019, Tarsier was bought by an investment company, and straight up told them they couldn't play with their Bandai Namco friends anymore. So what gives, I hear you say? Little Nightmare 3 was already announced. How can we have that without Tarsier? Excellent question. See, Bandai Namco was allowed to keep the IP for themselves due to some wibbly-wobbly legal shenanigans, and then team up with a new studio, Supermassive Games, who are best known for the Dark Pictures anthology series, and because I need something spooky to talk about for October, here we are. But that's later down the line. Today, I want to talk about Little Nightmares 2, and spoilers coming up right now, but the game ends with Mono and Six running away from the inside of the collapsing signal tower, and with a leap of faith, Mono jumps into Six's arms, asking her to pull her up, and Six is like, I could do that, Mono, I could do that, but then again, when am I ever gonna get a chance to do this again? Long live the Queen. Yes, without any warning, Six drops Mono off a cliff, leading him to become the main antagonist called the Thin Man. The very Thin Man that was trying to stop Mono from getting betrayed by Six to begin with. Oh, the irony. And let me tell you, when that ending first dropped, everyone was arguing about who was the real victim, even though it was totally Mono. But what if I told you, now with the help of the new podcast series, The Sound of Nightmares, both characters may actually be innocent and the real culprit someone far darker. But before that, really quick, let's get all that like and subscribe stuff out the way. And if you're a Little Nightmares fan, let me know if you want me to do more Little Nightmares debunks in the future. Now, before we start anything, we need to establish one thing. Where are these games taking place? Fortunately, as I said before, the new podcast series, The Sound of Nightmares, which the writing for is amazing by the way, and how come no one else is talking about it, we finally get our first bit of insights on this twisted world. As here we follow Otto, the local county psychiatrist, and his patient Noon, who is suffering nightmares after drinking contaminated water.
You sense that the dreams you visit hold a tangible, sustained existence?
Sort of. It's like how this basement is connected to the upper floors, but don't work together.
I need to reach it with you, to find that quiddity of consciousness we spoke of. It offers some explanation of your spiriting away last night.
So just to summarize, it seems the world of Little Nightmares have been just that, nightmares. And not your typical it was all a dream cop-out nightmares. I mean that the nowhere is a real place that exists on a subconscious level. And it's sucking in random kids who have been traumatized in the real world. Basically, what they're going for is a combination of Carl Jung's psychology and Eldritch horror. Now, doesn't that sound enticing?
Oh, hell no!
Now for this next part of the debunk, we need to play a little devil's advocate. What I mean by this is that I'm going to be going over Mono and Six's journey throughout the game, and take a critical look at the points given for Team Six or Team Mono. And let's start off where the two first met, with Mono menacingly chopping down a wall of wood between them.
Here's Johnny!
Now the first point Team Six would bring up here is that Mono intentionally brought Six out of the basement and into the dangerous world of the nowhere. However, I would like to argue, like all the other children, Six must have been surviving the dangers of the nowhere for quite some time in order to survive this long. Also, let's examine this scene more closely. Six rushes to the exit, leaving Mono behind. And when she needs help pulling the lever, do they officially work together, showing that Six was more than willing to leave the basement of her own free will. The next two major points happen at the school, where Mono allegedly allows Six to get kidnapped and dragged away by the bullies. But that's not true at all. Mono was trapped and helpless while Six was getting kidnapped. And when he was able to move again, they had already pulled up the ladder and went upstairs. And when they do finally reunite, Six goes savage on one of the bullies. However, on the other hand, these are still the same bullies who captured and hung Six upside down. However, on the other hand, the game actively tries to tell us on multiple occasions that there's something not quite right with Six. It's almost like her betrayal was foreshadowed ahead of time. And for the final 2 points of contention, Mono does nothing as Six is is dragged away by the Thin Man reaching out for him. However, this example right here is overlooking an important point, that Mono is a child.
Of course!
A child who has unintentionally unleashed the boogeyman behind the door and is now running and hiding away from yet another monster. He is paralyzed with fear, and when he does get his courage back, he doesn't forget about Six, he goes straight after her. However, that's not to say that Six still doesn't have a right to be mad without a proper apology. Which brings us to the final boss battle with Monster 6. The way you win this battle is grabbing your trusty axe again and striking the music box that Six is guarding until it breaks. And why wouldn't Six be mad at this? I mean, come on, Mono, you broke her music box. However, in Mono's defense, we're obviously leaving out some important parts, like how Six was banging on the TV implying she wants to be let out. How in her monster form, her mind and body were so twisted she didn't even recognize Mono. The signal tower was not a good place for her, even when comparing it to the rest of the nowhere. But now with all that out of the way, how can we honestly say that Six is just as innocent as Mono? She was still the one who let him drop at the end of the day. And while this is a little unorthodox, if you allow me to call out my own counter theory, I believe the true culprit is Shadow Six, her shadowy counterpart, and also the one calling the shots. What do I mean by this? Well, again, if we turn our attention to the sounds of nightmares, again, really good podcast, we learned that Six may not be the only one with a darker side to her.
Duality, a notion essential to psychology. We all contain a multitude of personas, allowing us to maintain the important illusion of a singular self, the very basis of human experience. In Noon, there lies both the innocent child and the disturbed traveler. Both fight for control. But what happens when the duality is not only in the mind?
Now, it's also likely that Noon and Six could also be one and the same, or at least that's how I interpreted it. But I believe this is Supermassive Games' way of telling us what Shadow Six actually is. The darker aspects of Six that are struggling for control and take over at the end of Little Nightmares 1. Notice the pause before the drop. If Six wanted Mono to fall, she could just walked away while he was jumping, or not reach her hand out at all. But instead, there's a pause before the big betrayal, like someone mentally is taking over. And there you have it, folks. Six isn't the monster we think she is, but a victim to her own monsters. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm getting a little hungry. Wonder where that gnome went off to. Theory debunked.